Well, welcome. I hope you're having a fantastic day. And as always, I'm just thrilled that you chose to spend some of your valuable time here with us. And today is a conversation that I think we can all benefit from because, like it or not, we are all engaged in the aging process. And we're actually going to be talking about negotiating aging with joy. And I'm really thrilled here to have James Flaherty, better known as Jim. So, welcome, Jim. It's so good to have you here. I can't wait for the conversation.
Thanks so much, Cindy. I'm delighted to be here and to talk to your listeners.
Yes, and for those of you who don't know him, Jim was an international advertising writer and creative director, but some of you may know that better, the Madmen series. He's a frequent motivational speaker about aging cheerfully, amongst other topics around leadership and living better. And he's a strong believer that you're only as old as you think you are, and he would know a thing or two about that. Jim is a glorious 89 years old, and he shows no sign of slowing down. Let me tell you, he's published 2 novels and 2 nonfiction books, and he's got another one on the way. So let's jump right in, Jim. I mean, you claim to have the secret for how to make the last 20 years of your life the best 20 years of your life. And before we dig into the recipe for that, I'm a big believer in mindset, and I understand you are too. So let's just talk about that for a moment. What role does negotiating our mindset play if we want to get more out of life?
You know, I think all of us have to look at every day of your life is a gift. You know, there are no guarantees that you were going to wake up on the right side of the grass today. But if you did, then you can say, wow, hot damn. It's another chance to hear, speak, see, listen, love, embrace,
Yeah.
to live, to be.
Yeah.
You know, I was raised by a very smart woman. My father died when I was quite young. And mother said, every morning you're going to have to face your biggest critic, the most severe person in your life. It's that person in your bathroom mirror. And you can either look at them and go, good God, another day, or smile bravely and cheerfully and say, good God, another day.
Yeah.
And it sounds a little corny, but folks, I do it. I do that every day. I say, good God, another day. Wow, I do not wake up depressed. I wake up with a goal and a purpose. And I've made a list at night of the 7 things I really want to accomplish the next day so that I don't have to think about them during the night. And there they are to remind me in the morning so I can jump right in and do them.
Yeah. And it's true. I don't think it's corny at all. I mean, it's funny. When I was young, ironically, I did find that stuff corny. And as I get older, I recognize mindset is everything. I mean, we can choose to look at, embrace all the problems in our life, or we can choose gratitude every day. On our worst day, we have so much to be grateful for compared to others in the world. It's just a beautiful kind of philosophy in life. And you'd mentioned about your dad. My understanding, your dad passed at only 47. Am I right about that?
That's right. Yeah, he was
Yeah.
the district attorney of the city of Miami, and he went in the hospital one Sunday and died the next Sunday. And mother barely had a chance to say goodbye. You know, absolutely fractured her, but she was terrific, and she came back, and I was 14 going on 11.
Yeah.
And we got through.
Yeah.
We got through it all.
That's a big adjustment at that age. That's for sure. Okay, so let's dig in then a bit to the recipe for making our last 20 years our best 20 years. What are some tips you have on it for us about how can we do that? How can we, as we get to so many people as they get older, they start to slow down, they feel like everything ought to be falling apart, so they act like it's already fallen apart. So what tips do you have on us for let's embrace that last couple decades?
Right. What Cindy said in the very beginning is if you think old, you get old.
Yeah.
I mean, you really cannot retreat from life because, I'm amazed. I've heard people say at 50, well, boy, I really worried that I'm thinking I'm kind of over the hill. And I say, over the hill? You're at the halfway mark.
Yeah.
You know that 50% of the children born today in civilized countries, 50% are going to live to age 100.
Wow.
That's a statistic, folks.
Yeah.
So, every day you should have a goal. You never can think of, oh God, nobody wants me anymore. I don't have the corner office. I don't have a private secretary. Guess what? What you do have is time time to go back to your original purpose in your mind of what you want to accomplish with your life. And I found people who were mathematical technicians that said, I always really wanted to paint, and are wonderful painters
Yeah.
now and working at it. Whether they will make a fortune at it doesn't matter. The
Yeah.
fact is that they're doing something good. Otherwise, you can always volunteer. Your
Yeah.
hospitals, your churches, they all need help. And it's wonderful to take what wisdom you have, and you do have more wisdom now,
Yeah.
unless you've been brain dead or you've been
Yeah.
asleep at the switch. You know more now than you
Yeah.
knew when you were 45 or 50.
Yeah.
You incorporated it. It becomes part of that mindset. And then you can mentor other people, and you can share it, and you can help other people. The
Yeah.
best, the best reward in life is to do something good for somebody when you expect nothing in return.
Uh,
That
um,
will make your day. Trust
yeah.
me.
Well, it's funny, we spend so much time, I think, with bastardized versions about what it means to have power, right? We always think about having power over others, and every media, all our entertainment industry pushes that power at all costs. And to me, I love to share, like, what about the power of gratitude, the power of service, as you were just saying, right? I mean, there's tremendous power that comes from just giving back. And I'm going to circle back. You said purpose. And that really struck chord for me because I started Women on Purpose about a decade ago now. And I had a very successful law practice, but I still felt like I wasn't fully living into my purpose, that I'd sort of done what was expected. And yes, I was practicing social justice, so I felt like I was making a difference, but I just felt like something was missing. So I'd love your perspectives, Jim, after 89 years in this, gorgeous planet. How important is purpose in living a long and joyful life?
Totally crucial. It ranks right up there with your personal health and taking care of yourself. Let's
Yeah,
face it, you're not going to grow older if you are breaking all the rules.
yeah,
So that's one thing to do in life.
yeah,
But you must have a reason to wake up in the morning with a smile.
yeah,
There's got to be, now I'm finding for the first time in my entire life, I wake up in the morning and I don't have to say the name of my my wife, my dear partner, my children, my business. I can wake up in the morning and say, wow, what are you going to do today, Jim, to be worthwhile? What are you going to
yeah,
produce? What are you going to create? Now, it's funny. I embraced a quote from, of all people, Noel Coward many, many years ago, and that's still my mantra, and I love it. And people hear it, and then they think about it and say, "You're right. Work is more fun than fun." You know? And I mean, how long can you float around a pool with a margarita in your hands? I can do
yeah,
that for about 15 minutes, and then I say, no, what are we?
yeah,
Why can't we produce something? Why can't we create something? And as a
yeah,
result, I've had many careers. I was a copywriter, then a corner office creative director. Then I jumped off the mountain and started a business I knew absolutely nothing about,
yeah,
and created a country and conference center.
yeah,
And I made it my purpose and my goal. And to make that happen, and I was in my late 40s when I started doing that. I worked 70 hours a week for about 10 years.
yeah,
And it became nationally famous.
yeah. I
And it
love
was
that.
wonderful. Now I write books, and I've written two of them in my 80s.
Yeah, I love
The-
it. I know. I know. And it's funny, you've used the word create a few times, and I think that's so critical, right? Because so
yeah,
often we end up in career paths that don't fill us up. What's that expression? If you do something you love, you'll never work another day in your life.
that's right.
And it struck me when you said about, the person who decided that they would paint on the side and they were actually great. I can't tell you how many lawyers I know who are frustrated fiction writers who just never make the time for it, or there's tremendous creativity there that never gets tapped into. So I love, what tips do you have for encouraging people to find those purposes that are more uplifting, that fill our soul rather than soul sucking kind of occupations that we're trapped in?
Okay, I know you've all heard a great deal about meditation. Maybe if that word turns you off, then I'd like you to start seriously thinking about self-analysis. to
Yeah.
sit quietly with yourself. If you are at that point where you no longer have to catch the commuting train to go to work, to do the job as the banker or as the creative director or as a lawyer. I mean, I did all that. And by the way, I didn't mind it. I loved being the advertising creative director.
Yeah.
I loved being the innkeeper. That was my purpose at the time.
Yeah.
But then when that was all over, I thought, who the hell am I? And
Yeah.
what am I going to do? And I thought, wait a minute, Jim, you were always a writer. You earned your living as a writer. I I was no longer, at that point, I was an innkeeper. And I went back to writing. And I first tried my hands. I wrote 2 novels, pure fiction novels, right there, and had a wonderful time doing it.
Yeah.
And it's very interesting writing fiction because you have to wear their clothes, speak
Yeah.
their language, you change your personality. And then as I got older, I thought when I saw so many friends retreating from life, and it bugged me. They
Yeah.
all say, "Oh God, you're here and you're going to lecture me," because I say, "Up, get up, get up."
Yeah.
You've got come back to life. I don't want you to die too young. It's dopey.
Yeah.
By the way, I'm writing a 5th book, Cindy. My new book that's underway is called Loving Longevity,
I
and the
love
subtitle is I'm 89 and have a 10-year plan.
that. I think that's
And
so great.
I really mean it.
Yeah.
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 So I want you to talk to yourself and say, okay, gosh, I have the time.
Yeah.
And besides the joy of having time to really read, I mean, you'll never be able to read enough. And there's so many incredibly good
Wow.
books out there.
Yeah.
But don't say, well, good, now I can watch television 48 hours a week, because they say that 65% of the people over the age of 65 watch 48 hours or more of TV a week. And
Wow.
that's not enough to nourish
No.
your brain and to give you a reason to say, wow, I can do something. I can be
Yeah.
part of it, whether it's local politics, which is always complicated, even in small towns. And I live in a town in the boonies,
Yeah.
80 miles north of Manhattan, but it's absolute boonies. It could be 10,000 miles from New York City.
Yeah.
Whether you do that, or I'm a director of my church.
Yeah.
Which people say you with your mouth, but it doesn't matter. I'm a director of the church and sing in the choir.
Yeah.
So I devote half of Sunday is devoted to the church and everybody in the church. I know all the congregation, and I help them and talk to them, and I tell them they can call me at any time.
Yeah.
And
See,
I
there's
can,
that power of service again, right? And
it's,
it's interesting when you say that about TV, because I think not only are we not adding to, but we're probably depleting brain cells. And I want to circle back when you were talking about purpose. You'd said about whether, if you don't like the word meditation, the word that came to mind for me as well is space, Jim, right? And for our listeners out there, allow space in your life to just be, not having to do anything, to just be and think, what would fill me up right now? And the other thing that you said is that was my purpose then. And I love that, because I think so often we're conditioned to think, oh, it's too big to think of. I have one purpose, and it's going to, like some magical moment. Our purpose can change through life. We can have multiple purposes at different stages and phases. And if you don't give yourself the space for that self-reflection you talked about, you won't be able to. And I want to really put a pin in, because you mentioned time. And it struck me, I know from reading one of your books, you have some really interesting thoughts on the value of time, sort of vis-a-vis aging. And I think you based it on Seneca's work around wasting so much of our lives. I'd love if you could share some of that with us. That really struck a chord with me.
Yeah, time is perhaps the most valuable, other than your personal health. It's the most valuable, what's the word for it? Ingredient in life, the most valuable essence of life is how much time do you have? How much time do you have to live? How much time do you have to cook?
Yeah.
How much time did you have to give to your children?
Yeah.
And by the way, talking about changing goals, your goals are, I've got to climb up the ladder and earn enough money to support my family. I've got to be a good husband and father. I've got to be, you have different goals at different ages and stages of your life, and they will change drastically. I am at 89. I am not the person I was at 50 or 60 at all, at all. I'm just, I don't, I think I look kind of alike, but the rest of it is fine. But the rest of it, when I found I had time, I thought, isn't that interesting that I don't have to be at the inn at 7 o'clock in the morning, which I was every day for 10 or 15 years.
Yeah.
You know, I had time to put my home exactly the way I wanted it in order, and to arrange my life in a way that was comfortable, to make sure, and this is crucial, folks, about living, to make sure that I was getting new friendships, hopefully at different ages, and maintaining the old friendships, because the more connections you have are the reasons you have for living long. They've proved that over and over and over and over, that when you have connections, you live long. Without them, if you are lonely, and that's the problem with 7 million seniors in this country, they are lonely and depressed. And if you can help them by calling them once a week or every other week and say, remember that time we did something silly, and bring them back to life, you'll be helping them. But to take the time to figure out, gosh, I bet I could do that. I bet I would be wonderful doing that. And, you know, I don't know, time is a treasure. You can't put a value on it.
Well, and the thing that really struck me as I was reading your book was this idea about like wasting time, because we do, whether it's spending inordinate amounts of time watching TV or doing the, as opposed to, and even our work for many of us, and I know again in the law profession, it's like this badge of honor that I'm, we bill in these 6-minute increments, and I'm, billing these obscene amounts. I don't have time for vacation. I don't have time for this. And it almost becomes a point of pride. And I find so many people, I was going to say most, but so many people don't actually spend time on their priorities. Like if you ask them, what are the most important things in your life? They would say, family or friends or this, and yet we don't. We spend time on the to-do list, on the work thing. So I love that idea. Go ahead, sorry.
Yes, it makes me crazy. I say to friends, hi, what are you doing this week, sweetie? Oh, I'm so busy, Jim. I said, really, tell me, what have you been doing? And I mean, it's nothing. She has done absolutely nothing. And that, I'm going to go back to something I mentioned earlier, which I do really think is important. Every day at the end of the day or in the evening, make a list of 5 or 6 things that you really want to do, that you would like to accomplish the next day. They might be call the vet about the dog, or call your dentist, or it also might be call your friend who is elderly and living alone, or write a letter of, I'm not completely happy with what you said to me, to your grandson, but to make a list at nighttime, so you won't think of it during the night. And in the morning, you've got to do all this now.
And take charge
I attack it
of the
every
time.
morning. I attack it every morning to get that done.
Well, and I love that, because you're taking charge of the time in your life and choosing. My daughter and I, we had been talking about this because she loves agendas, right? And we started looking at all of her agendas and recognized almost all of them out there. It's a multi-million-dollar industry, and they're all about to-do tasks. How do you get all your tasks done in a day? And we're like, this is backwards. So we call it the purpose planner. And it's about, look at all the categories in your life, right? And you have to do these check-ins to say, okay, what am I doing to move forward with my friends, with my intimate partner, for my health, for my spiritual, whatever that means to me, in all of the various categories of our life. And
that's terrific.
Yeah, and it's been a game changer. Now,
I love it.
Being 89, I mean, one of the things that I, am becoming increasingly aware of is ageism in our world. And I was wondering if you have any tips for how to best handle ageism.
Okay, I mean, there obviously ageism is one thing if you're still in a profession and in an office and you realize that looking at you as, I wonder if he or she is getting a little bit over the hill.
Yeah.
You know, and if you really feel it, obviously you have to go to somebody and talk to them about it and say,
Yeah.
wait a minute. Yes, I realize I don't have quite as much hair as I had, but I am still me
Yeah.
and I still have a point of view. And here's what I'd like to talk about, or
Yeah.
not like it's tough. Ageism in an office, and it's very stupid. And companies are getting over it. They're
Yeah.
starting to realize. Oh, that was another great statistic, by the way, Cindy, that's changed. They used to say the most productive years of mankind were includes women too. I'm using the
Yeah.
old term, were ages 40 to 50.
Yeah.
And now they're saying the most productive years of in registered amongst everybody are 60 to 70,
Wow. Wow.
and 40 to 50 is fallen to about third place.
Yeah.
So they're realizing that old doesn't mean dead.
Yeah.
And so then, you know, and ageism won't be it doesn't count so much socially if you are still socially active. I invite people over. I have a small dining table, which is just for me and two other people.
Yeah.
So I have at least once a week, I have one person or two people come and we'll have a wonderful dinner. And by the way, I'm going to detour here for a minute. Self-help. I have all fruit for breakfast.
Yeah.
Then I go downstairs. I'm spoiled to my pool. I have a pool in my house.
Yeah.
And
Nice.
I do 30 minutes of serious exercise in the pool every single morning.
Yeah.
Go up, take a hot soapy shower, get dressed for the day. And then I have dinner around 4 o'clock in the afternoon.
Yeah.
And it's perfect schedule for me, for my age. There's 2 meals a day. It's fine.
Yeah.
It's perfect. But I have company every week. And then besides Thanksgiving and Christmas, we'll
Sure.
have about 3 dinner parties a year with 8 people and one
Yeah.
big party. I have a Cinco de Mayo party every year.
Oh, fun, fun. I love that. You're so alive. You're so alive than a lot of people half your age and less. No, I was laughing when you were talking about ageism in the office, because one of the things that I saw, especially in the practice of law, as the judiciary got older, because the law mandatory retirement used to be exempt from the human rights code, right? You could discriminate against people based on age in the workplace. And then all of a sudden, as the judiciary were all in their 70s and then mid 70s, suddenly the Supreme Court reversed that and made it clear that they were going to be reversing that decision about mandatory retirement. So now we have people working till much, much, much later in life. Now, you had
Mhm.
mentioned connection, and I agree. I think the statistic, it's overwhelming now, the
Yeah.
statistical support for that about loneliness and connection. What tips do you have for people who are feeling left out? What are some things that we can do if we're like feeling like I don't have a circle, I'm feeling left out of things? Any ideas for that?
Well, first of all, if you really are alone, you've got to put yourself out where you are amongst other people. If you
Yeah.
live, I really do live in a small town. It's 2,600 people,
Yeah.
and the next village is 1,800 people. Some very pretty towns around us. It's
Yeah.
where New York, Connecticut, and Massachusetts all bump into each other. The foothills of the Berkshires.
Yeah.
The libraries in your town have events. They have readings,
It's true.
and sometimes they have a reading of a play, or they have book clubs to get together, or they have lectures. You can go there. Go back to church.
Yeah.
Maybe you've given up church, but find a minister, a priest, or a rabbi who you think is wise and has something to say, and go, and you're going to meet other people.
Yeah.
And you won't love all of them, but now and then you're going to meet somebody and say, gosh, he's terrific or she's terrific. And let's get together. And don't be shy. Invite somebody over or invite yourself. Say, can we meet for lunch?
Yeah.
Can we get together? You've got to find other people. The rest of it, I'll make quick. I'm a great believer I was raised with the golden rule. Okay, the accepted golden rule is very awkward sounding. Do unto others as you would have others do unto you. lay that on a 4 or 5 year old and they'll go, huh?
Yeah.
So I rewrote it, being the writer. I rewrote it for myself and my children when I was having babies. My babies are now 62 and
Oh my
64.
gosh.
But I rewrote it. You get what you give.
Oh, I like that.
And if you give a sympathetic ear,
Yeah.
a generous heart, a meaningful smile, a loving hug, guess what? You get it back.
Yeah.
If all you do is bitch, moan, complain,
Yeah.
demand, that comes back and bites you somewhere south of the border behind you.
Yeah.
I mean, you really give good and get good.
Yeah.
And if you make an effort to say, gosh, I was happy to see you, or let's get together,
Yeah.
you have to take action in your own hands.
Yeah.
Don't expect the world to come to your door and say, oh, I've been waiting to have you in my life. That's not necessarily
Yeah.
true. But
Oh,
once
that's
they
great
know
advice.
you,
Yeah.
and realize you're still funny,
Yeah.
and guess what? If you were funny at 50, you're still funny at 75. I'm
Yeah.
still practically a stand-up comic because they know that I was always a nutcase when I was young,
Yeah.
and I still am.
Yeah. Well, I love that advice to put yourself out there. And that's for
Yeah,
any age, frankly. I mean, so often we see people sort of shying away and not having, don't be afraid of the rejection, right? What is the worst that's going to happen? Just put yourself out there. And just
right.
to put a pin for our listeners as well, even for the church suggestion, there are so many options out there now. And even if you don't consider yourself a religious person, there are all kinds of spiritual organizations out there, whether
Right.
appreciating the universe or mother. So there are all kinds of options. And I was chuckling when
Yeah,
you were saying about going to your library because I'm president of our local authors association up here, and we have reading events. And the vast majority of our group are people who are all north of 70 years old, coming out,
terrific.
engaging, and reading and writing. So it's so beautiful. Now, what prompted you to write "Embrace Your Age"? I think you were 87 when you wrote that one.
Yes, I started at 87. I published it when I was 88 years old because it was kind of the follow-up to Dear Old Friends, which was based on
Yeah.
a love letter I wrote to I had always had older friends. I always had friends 20 to 50 years older from the time I was a teenager. I don't know why.
Wow.
But then Embrace Your Age, I saw so many issues that I wanted to discuss with friends. So Embrace Your Age is not a novel. It's really written as a series of every chapter asks a question because it's a chat with Jim of me saying, what, how are you going to handle it when they die?
Yeah.
You know,
And
and
it's such a beautiful style for our listeners. Like, check it out. I mean, the book, your style, Jim, it's so irreverent and yet poignant at the same time. I thought it was great.
yeah,
No,
okay, go
no, go
ahead.
ahead.
No, well, no, I want people to not read it as, oh, it's it's not written as literary fiction.
It's
It's not
fun.
me being a writer. It's me talking to you about,
Yeah.
come on, let's talk it over. This is all nonsense.
Yeah. I felt like I was having a conversation with you reading the book, which is, I think, so great. Now, what would you say is one of the most surprising things that you discovered, or was there something surprising you discovered while you were writing it? Sometimes we have insights ourselves, even though if it's our writing that we're not aware of. Anything for you?
Actually, it helped me. It helped me realize that, hot damn, I really don't believe that you think at 89, I think, well, this isn't going to go on forever. No, I really don't believe that I'm going to wake up on the wrong side of the grass anytime soon. I
Yeah.
mean, my children who tend to be a bit wise ass, I wonder why. I wonder why. So as Kelly, my elder daughter, said, a sweet, loving father of 88 would just go to bed and not wake up and leave his children whatever money there is. But no, not you. You'll live forever just to spite us. But what I realized is that I am going to go on
Yeah.
for quite a while. So therefore, I've got to have a purpose and a goal. And that's why the new book says loving longevity. I'm 89 and have a 10-year plan
Yeah,
because
that's clever, by
I'm
the way.
I'm working right now. I'm working to giving more public speaking. I go to workshops every year at Modern Elder Academy. That's very worthwhile for all of you to write them, modernelderacademy.com, and
Yeah.
put yourself on the mailing list. They're wonderful people. And it's just terrific.
That's
And
beautiful.
you learn a lot. You meet a lot of interesting people.
Well, this has been a total pleasure, and not surprisingly, it's gone by very quickly. You are so much fun to talk to with such great insights. I normally like to end by asking, what's one of the greatest mindset shifts that you've had in your life? It doesn't have to be about aging, just at some point in your life when you had one of those moments where you're like, and you see things differently. What would that be for you?
Besides, the work is more fun than fun,
Yeah,
which
I love
which
that.
I really do believe. I
Yeah,
really absolutely do believe it. I think it's so simple.
yeah.
Is you are what you want to be.
Mm,
You must imagine yourself and say, do I like me? Do I want to ask yourself a question? Would I want to be my best friend?
mm.
Would you really want to be best friends with yourself? And if not, then have a serious talk with yourself. Get to know your bathroom mirror. I mean, talk to the mirror and say, was I terrific last night, or did you have problems with my performance? If you have an honest talk with yourself, it's your nearest psychiatrist. I write a
Yeah,
chapter about that. Your nearest psychiatrist is your bathroom mirror. If
yeah,
you would really talk to them and listen to them and listen to what are you saying to yourself, but try to have an image of who you are. What do you represent when you walk in a room? Do people look up and smile because they think, "Oh, good, I'm so glad she's here or that he's here,"
yeah.
because I know they're going to say something wonderful, and then say something wonderful. Don't just sit there and say, "Oh, let's have an organ recital. My heart, my liver, my lungs." No, none of that. No, talk about, God, you look terrific. What have
Yeah,
you've lost 20 pounds overnight or something, but
yeah. What
get bring people to life.
powerful, powerful note to end on. I love that. And it strikes me, I often wanted to, and I'm going to adopt that and spread that, because I often say to people too, just choose 3 words that describe who you want to be, how you want to be seen. And you can do it for everything. If you're about to go into a work meeting, or you're about to go into a family reunion, for any event, just be more intentional about showing up, which is your point about who you want to be, right? Choose 3 words. I want to show up as compassionate and, funny and care, whatever it is. There's no right or wrong answer, but live your life with intention. Be who you want to be with intention. I think that's such a beautiful message, Jim. Thank you for that. So where can people learn more about you and get your books?
You can go onto my website, which is under my name, all that HTTPS stuff, but it's James B like boy Flaherty, Flaherty, Flaherty. And you'll find all 4 of my books. You'd like the novels too. They're fun, a little romance, a little sex,
Yeah.
international travel, they're fiction.
Yeah.
They're fun, nice to take to the beach. And
Perfect.
let's get together.
I love that. And we'll make sure for our listeners, we'll put that in the show notes as well. And I will check out one of your fiction. I love fiction books. I'm running short right now. I've been furiously powering through them this summer. So
I'll send them to you if you like.
you see, look
If
at
you
that
like them,
generous spirit.
or you can buy them on Kindle. I don't care. I mean, I do a lot on Kindle, by the way. It's very easy as you get older. The
I
Kindle
love that.
is easy to
You
read.
you really do practice what you preach, Jim. It's such a beautiful way to live. So it's what a great model and inspiration for us. And thank you so much for sharing your time with us here today. I have loved this conversation.
Every minute.
Yes.
Well, thank
And I have no doubt for our listeners that you got lots of value from this episode. Let's face it, in our profession, it is sometimes, we're just got our nose to the grindstone and going ahead. And I think we don't really appreciate what we want in our life a decade from now, a couple of decades from now, and how we want our aging process to go. So I hope you got some valuable tidbits here about living your best life while you are practicing your best practice. And make sure to give the gift of sharing this episode with other people that you know, both within your life and within your profession, who you think could benefit from this messaging. I think it is such an important message for all of us. And before we sign off today, just talk about a few ways that that we can work together. I specialize in teaching both seasoned and early stage attorneys a better way to practice so they can be increasingly authentic, a little less battle worn, a little less feeling like they've had the soul sucked out of them, and ultimately be significantly more effective and joyful in your practice as a result of that. I'd certainly love the opportunity to help you and or the lawyers in your firm thrive and stand out. And if that sounds interesting, check out a better way to practice for your firm at practicingwithpurpose.org. So www.practicingwithpurpose.org if you want to book a consult or just chat. And that is a wrap for this episode. Until next time, go forth and find ways that you can practice on purpose. Find a better way to practice so you can rekindle that passion and still make a difference in the world, negotiating your best life on your terms. Until next time, take care.